Exactly, Megan. Logos need room to breathe. Yes, precisely. Um, so you are not only with this logo, you're not only seeing the word mark and the icon, but you're seeing the airspace that travels throughout the logo. If we looked at this logo and the icon, we're seeing the green circle here, the I don't know what we call it, antelope, or I don't think that's the right term, but whatever that animal is, a deer, it's not too close to the zoo, the Toronto Zoo word mark. It's not too far. It's sized in a relationship with it. However, when that logo is placed in content, it needs a certain amount of space defined around it. That's the clear space. In this case, they call it a buffer zone. But typically the term is clear space. Whatever you call it, you're understanding that that logo needs space, right? So in this case, they've defined the clear space with the distance between the left edge of that icon and the, we'll call it neck of the animal illustration in the icon. This defines the clear space. Then they show that with the X, and then they apply the X over here, saying that your clear space has to be that distance. So wherever you put this logo, nothing can come that close to it. Everything has to be within that boundary away from it. And they show the same for the other configuration of the logo, the horizontal, and they also show it for the icon. Now, the thing to remember is that you not only have to determine the clear space, and I'll show you how to do that, but you also have to know how to indicate it in a way that's going to allow whomever is using the logo to determine it right away. You don't necessarily put any numbers. There's no need for numbers or math or percentages. But you also don't just say it's this far, because maybe at that size it's that far. But if that logo is put on a large banner or the size of a building or a big sign, that ratio is going to be different. And the logo doesn't come with this frame around it. So we always choose an element in the logo to define the clear space so that when someone has only the logo, they are able to look at the style guide and go, okay, whatever size the logo is, this is going to be the clear space. So if that logo is on the side of a building, they're going to put it at least this far away from the edge of the building. And no matter how big that logo is, if we're pretending this is 20 feet wide, then they're probably going to put that logo 4 feet away from the edge of the building at least, allowing it clear space. So I'm just going to share Illustrator now, because one of the things that can be confusing is when we use a logo in imagery, on backgrounds and so on, how do we work with clear space? So in this case, I have a Coke logo in a Coke ad. So if I was going to put this logo in the ad and I put it here, for example, I know it's a little difficult to see at the moment. I'll just give it a different color. Right now, we're not adhering to clear space from the edge. We don't specifically know the clear spacing of this logo, but we're going to pretend, it's about 1/2 inch or so. That's not adhering to clear space. Now, if I did this and I make the logo a 1/2 inch from the edge of the page, the thing that many miss is that it's still not adhering to clear space, because although it's on top of an image, aspects within the image are deemed objects. So in this case, if I wanted the logo in that space, I would have to adhere to the clear space within the image. So this roughly allows the proper clear space because it's not coming too close to that object in the image or that one. Now, if I was going to put it down here, let's say, I'm just going to go back to its original color. Let's say I wanted to bring the logo down here and almost have it take part in the relationship with the body of the image. This is the body of the image. And now you might say, well, it's not adhering to clear space here. Well, in this case, we're working the logo into the image. The logo is now taking part in the actual, we'll say, subject matter of the image, for lack of a better term. So the logo is becoming a part of the image story. It's not just a logo anymore that's kind of offering identity, but it's part of the overall body of the image. So that's where the clear spacing, for example, with the steps, we may be able to overcome, because overall we have good visibility of the logo. We're not doing this. This would in fact be an infringement on clear spacing and of course visibility. So it does get confusing. I want to be clear that when you're working with logos, that's why we have style guides, because they give us certain allowances and do's and don'ts. So in this case, in the Coke style guide for their ads, their print ads, they may allow for this. This may be approved. And that's another thing. These things go through approval. Style guides are often, in high profile work, they're often legal documents. If someone has infringed on the style guide and something gets out to production and it's a high expense, and then someone else realizes this isn't how we use the logo, well, who's paying for the reprint, et cetera, et cetera? That's where the style guide comes in and says who distributed it, who used it, who didn't use it, et cetera. Okay, so there are these nuances with it. But when we're talking about our development of a style guide, we have to determine what that clear space is. That's what you guys are working on. So I have my logo here that I often use and for our demos, and we're going to determine the clear space on it. It's a few steps between determining it and indicating it. So the first thing is you've got your logo designed. Don't worry about clear space when designing. Design a good logo. Clear spacing we can take care of after in many ways. Once the logo is designed, you need to determine that comfortable zone around it. So what I'm going to do here is draw a box just with a thin stroke. And I'm going to close that box in to each edge of the logo. This is where I start determining it. Now I'm going to scale that box out. This is where we're using a little bit of our design instinct feel. You literally have to think of this as the logo being in a box, and when is it going to reach that comfort level? We want the box to be as close to the logo comfortably, because we don't want too much clear space, but we also want it far enough away that it's not going to feel a little tense. So what I do is I hold Command Option Shift when I scale, and I just scale it out like this. And I'm working from the sides first, and particularly I'm looking at the right side. So I'm going, okay, that ratio wise, right, like that feels too far, right? If I now make the top and bottom, I'm going to make a square here so that I can get this exact size. If I make the top and bottom the same, it's probably going to feel too far with regard to the clear space on this. So that feels a little too open. Not by much, but by a little. The other thing is in this logo, I've got a little bit of an overhang, but that's fine. I'm going to include that. I'm not going to worry about how that's affecting the clear space at all. This feels a little far, so now that I've got that set equal all the way around, again, Command Option Shift while holding them down while I scale, I'm going to go in and I'm just being sensitive. Well, nah, that's too close. Right about, in my feeling, right about there is pretty good. So this becomes sort of a feeling thing. So that's the first thing. And again, as you learn and as you work with logos and you're developing your design eye, you're going to be more and more comfortable with assessing this. You're going to feel, no, that's too close, that's too far. Sometimes you're just going to get to a point where you can't decide, and that's when it's probably there. Often for me, it's when I can't make that decision that it's good. So for now, I think this is good. So then what I want to do, because I need some way to indicate that, I'm going to look for something in the logo that may fit that space. So I'm going to bring my little square back and holding shift, I'm going to scale it down. I'll just give it a fill here, and I'm going to give it a color so it kind of stands out from the rest of everything. And I'm going to look for something in the logo that matches or comes very close to the size of this square, because this square is roughly my clear space. And even up here, in fact, I can lower these down. So I'm going to lower these down now because just the proportions of the scaling move the bottoms out a bit. That's better. So I found the comfort zone. I evened it out. And now I want to find something in the logo that it comes as close as I can find to this determined clear space. So if I look around, I go, okay, the A, not really. The B is pretty close. The L, really, the L is even closer. The C, too far, and the K, pretty good. So when I look in this logo, I'm going to use the L. So when you look at that, you think, well, the L is more than the clear space you determined. It's a little lower and it's a little wider. That's okay. I'm going to adjust based on the character that I'm choosing. So I'm going to use the width of the L to determine my clear space. So now what I'll do is I'm going to pull this out, and I'm going to make this as foolproof as possible for whoever is using this. I'm going to turn, in a bit, I'll turn the frame to red, but for now I'm going to pull that L out. I'm just making a copy, holding my Option key down to make a clone of that. And I'm going to make a stroke that comes down from that. And I'll just color that stroke red and make it a hairline at 0.25 points. I can adjust all of this later. I'm just defining it. So that I know it's the width, not the height. The L isn't a square shape, so I'm determining that the width is going to indicate my clear space. So what I'll do now is utilize the width of the L, and I'm actually going to put the L in this. So I'm going to get rid of this box for a moment. And knowing that it's the width of the L, I'm going to put the L beside the logo. I'm going to color it red as well. And then I'm going to take it up to the top and rotate it. And again over here, and I'll go right to this edge. I should just leave it where it was. That's fine. And then here, remembering it's the width. So I took it from there, and I can show it down there if I want, but what I would probably do is a notation because this is a little confusing. So I'm just reminding myself with these lines, okay, we're going with the width of the L. Now I'm going to bring my box back in and see how close it was. So it's close enough that I go, okay, I'm going to use the L. I'm just going to extend this box to the edges of the L because it's not going to be a great increase in my clear space comfort zone. This logo is a little awkward because the left side of the logo has a lot of negative space in it, but that's okay. The clear space is something we can allow a little more in that regard. Now with this frame, I'm going to just use my eyedropper and select the stroke there. And I'm going to now copy this frame, Command C, Command F, and I'm going to bring that down onto the logo itself. And you don't have to do this. You don't have to double frame it, but you're just trying to make it very clear that what the logo space is and how it's determined. So now this is where I really try to make style guides foolproof. I'll actually say with a notation that this is what has determined. So you can make a little note, and I'll even write that little note here. Clear space determined by width of this character, because this is a typographic character. And then I would size that appropriately, and I'll color it so that it's obviously a note. And then if you want, you can make these dashed lines. It's up to you. The point is you have to make it very clear to the user. You almost have to think of this as this may be a junior designer that's never done this kind of work before, and they have to understand what clear space is and how they're using it. So now if I take this logo and I put it somewhere that, you know, on a building, on the side of a car, whatever, I'm going to know that this L is what determines how close anything else can come to it.